And it's lights out.
Welcome back to another episode of Drive Through Penalty. I'm Sean, joined here with my father Craig. This week we're putting down the Texas barbecue. We're getting into those Mexican tacos. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff this week. Obviously what happened last week in Austin is a big one that we have to talk about. We're going to cover F1 news and of course F1 fantasy strategy. If you haven't watched the videos before, we also do a lap in my sim to give you guys a little flavor and taste of what the track looks like.
So last week in Austin, there was no disappointment as far as entertainment. Maybe the guy that ran away with the race, nobody bothered to follow because he was so far and free. He was driving like he was taking his kids down for ice cream in the corner. But some interesting things have happened from that. We did call, the ruckus in the first corner and all the things that could happen. I loved all those S's. The passing, it's probably one of the best races that I've seen so far this year as far as changing places. But I think what we need to discuss now as we get closer to the end of the season is what's going on as far as the driver's title. The constructors is done, but the three Cowboys have now turned into the three Amigos for this weekend. And maybe you can just explain how it could end up for the last race.
Oh, sure. Well, just some basic calculations have been done. And with the 5 races left, looking at the 3 guys, the 3 Amigos, Lando, Oscar, and Max. If Max, hypothetically, were to win all the races up until the last one, Lando second and Oscar third, this last race would be only a 1-point difference between the 3 of them and would make for the craziest end of the season imaginable. And as you know, I've never been the biggest Max Verstappen fan, not because I don't like him or any of that stuff. It's because I didn't like seeing the guy win every week. But now that he's the underdog, let's go Max Verstappen.
You don't even talk about your old buddy Lewis anymore.
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
Ton of pressure on a lot of drivers. Of course, Oscar, we talk about it every week, but massive battle between him and Lando. Internal team affairs, this and that. Charles is out of the picture, whatever. Lewis, who? Let's not spend any more time on last week's race. Let's jump right into this one. So we're in Mexico City for the next stop on the F1 calendar. The Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez, a 4.3 kilometer track. Drivers will go 71 laps around this high altitude circuit sitting more than 2,200 meters above sea level. That thin air means cars generate less downforce, engines lose a bit of power, and cooling becomes a real challenge. So setups here are always a little bit of a headache. We've got 17 corners, 3 DRS zones, including that massive 1.2 kilometer main straight, though the FIA actually shortened that DRS zone slightly this year to make overtaking a little bit more balanced. It's a mix of long straights, heavy braking zones, and that iconic Foro Sol Stadium section where drivers weave through the wall of the fans. Easily one of the most unique atmospheres in Formula One.
Now, I ask you every week is, do you love this track?
You know what? I've said in the past, it's not one of my favorites, and funny coming from me considering every single track is my favorite, I know, but I don't know. There's something about this one. It's certainly growing on me. Maybe as I become more experienced driving in the sim, this challenging track is more enjoyable, but there's something just about the overall flow that I haven't been crazy about. I'm looking to come into this one again with an open mind, and hopefully, after seeing an entertaining race, I change my mind.
The first corner looks interesting because at the end of a kilometer straightaway.
Sure, and as drivers, you got to take this a little bit differently than you would take another corner, and we'll get into it, but the high altitude plays a big role in
the
this.
High altitude plays a huge, even when they play other sports, the altitude changes. It affects everything. It's even harder to breathe, if you can imagine. Those guys have to suffer through that too.
100%. Imagine that. That being said, cars that have holes in their engine covers and more holes in the body are going to suffer this week. Braking's a lot different. So you're going to have to brake earlier. Brakes get really hot. Downforce is different.
Completely different.
It's a completely...
So they say the interesting thing is that the car feels lighter to drive, but it doesn't mean it's a good thing.
You're basically ice skating along this track, and when we get into the lap a little bit later, you'll kind of see the overall flow what I'm talking about, but I hope for an interesting one. It's not always in the past been the most exciting race. It's kind of a hit or miss.
Surpassing?
Not quite anything like last week in Texas. We'll get some passing, but yeah, after what we just experienced last week, this one might seem a little bit slow. Fingers crossed that's not the case.
You know, on a little Mexican history, the first Grand Prix in Mexico was in 1962. And they ran that up to 1970, I believe it was. And there was a lot of issues. There was financial issues, not paying their bills. There was, they got into real trouble with the crowd control, because there's two famous Mexican drivers from that era, and they were brothers. And that's the Rodriguez brothers, who the stadium is named after that. But in 62, one of them passed away in a Formula One race, and it wasn't there. It was in one of the other ones. And in 1970, the other one was lost in a motor car racing accident. But what happened was, it was very well attended from day one, but the crowds were so rowdy because they were so excited to see this Rodriguez that they actually had to postpone a race for a couple hours. They had, the fans were throwing bottles on the track. I mean, this is crazy. And Jackie Stewart, his car hit a damn dog.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that came to an end for a little while. But in 1986, they got it back. It was slippery through the whole thing through 92. And, you know, again, there was money problems, but the track was really, really bumpy. And even Ayrton Senna had a complaint about the track, and he got into some S's, and his car was bumping around, and it just blew him off the track. He ended up in a wall, and he got hurt, and he still raced the next day. But in 1992, this is interesting too, the air pollution was so bad in Mexico City that the government was already cutting back the number of government cars that were on the road, and because Mexico's geographically in between these high mountains, so when this population generates all this air pollution, there is nowhere for it to go. So they ended up having to cancel it. It wasn't working again. So in 2015, they came back again, and Bernie negotiated the deal as usual, my buddy Bernie. They had improved the track dramatically. The only year they've missed since then, I think it was for COVID. And I know it's not your favorite track, but they just renewed it for another 3 years. So you have a Mexican Grand Prix through 2028 now. Interesting though, is that next year, Cadillac debuts, and Sergio Perez, they're gonna miss him this year, and I'm sure he's doing all kinds of work behind the scenes, but Sergio Perez is gonna be there next year, and it will be big. Okay, Sean, I'm going to let you pick, but why don't you hop in one of your cars and take us for a lap?
We are in Mexico City at the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez. Sending it down this long main straight, DRS is open, 8th gear. Braking just before the 100-meter board into this 3-part chicane. Great place to overtake here. Just trying to use all of the track into the next straight. DRS is open again. 7th gear, up into 8th gear. Left and right into turn 4 and 5. Coming up to a sharp right as we head into the grandstands. Now into the famous winding section from the old course. Full throttle, maximize track limits. Skating through the section here, just hanging on. We just survived. Braking at the 75-meter board as we head into the stadium here. Sharp left at turn 13. We pull a Max Verstappen and take out a pylon. And into the final turn. Getting ready to open up DRS again. And that is a lap in Mexico City.
Okay, Sean, thanks for the lap. Was that Tsunoda's car?
It might have been.
The reason I noticed it is because you were probably about 2 seconds behind if you were in Max's car.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun track. It's a challenging track, as you can see. There's a ton of curves. There's a ton of S's. You're in 3rd gear a lot, but that straight is a long one. So I think before we end the video today, we obviously have to talk about F1 Fantasy because we're coming out of a big week. I know a lot of you guys use Limitless, including my father over here. Depending on your build, it might or might not have worked out for you. Again, usually
Well, if you had two McLarens that both crashed in the first corner, like we were 10 seconds in, I was dead.
it happens, and that's unfortunately how I started my season. But let's jump into it again. Let's look at the usual tools, F1 fantasy tools. I'm going to break down the team calculator, the budget builder. There's 5 weeks left. There's still a chance to win your pool. It's never too late and anything can happen. So let's get right into it. Welcome back to the F1 fantasy segment. This week, as we all know, we're going into the Mexican GP, and it is time to officially start looking at our team builds for the week. So if you followed along, this is kind of where my team left off from last week. We finally made that jump into the 2.8 light, which meant we got to have 2 premium constructors and 2 premium drivers. That is if you're considering Kimi Antonelli a premium driver based on the amount of money he costs and his points over the last little bit. He is considered one, but ultimately we still want to upgrade Antonelli to a George Russell or a Charles Leclerc. The problem is we're running out of time, and if any of you are still in that position where you're chasing budget, we do the same thing every week. We look at our favorite tool, the F1 Fantasy Tools calculator, and we essentially look at who is projected to make the most amount of money, and let's do that right now. So looking at the budget builder section here, things have changed quite a bit. And a guy that I haven't seen at the top of this list at all the entire season is currently the top pick, and that is Yuki Tsunoda. He's the only driver here in the tier B column that can score negative points and still increase by that plus 6 million, which is great. So taking a look at some of these other drivers, you know, we do have Lawson, but we don't have Behrman, Alonso, Colapinto. We don't have Gabby, we don't have Gasly, we have Antonelli, Hadjar, and Sainz, and they're pretty deep in this list and need 20 plus, 18 plus points in order to get us that increase. And because we're still chasing, we're gonna kind of want to drop a couple of these assets. Antonelli still being lower in this category, I'm still confident that he can put 18 points up. That is given that the Mercedes can hold up this week. It's a different track, as we probably talked about in the video, and the elevation is higher here. So different things come into play. It's most likely gonna be hot. We're in Mexico, but we'll probably keep those guys. Now, you know, jumping over to another part of this app that we haven't used really or talked about, I personally use it all the time, is you get to plug in your current budget and it will tell you what, after all the simulations it's run, what the best team to pick is with your budget. So, you know, a lot of you guys are around, let's say 123, 125. Just plugging this in is still showing, or it is showing, that McLaren and Red Bull are the 2 best constructor choices right now. It's risky because that means Tsunoda has to do what he did last week, and he doesn't do it all the time in order to be confident enough to put Red Bull in my squad. But Verstappen seems to be at the top of all these teams, and we were pretty fortunate with our timing switching over from Piastri to him, because we've had Piastri all year long and he has been the golden ticket for us. Verstappen seems to have taken that place. Piastri didn't finish well last race, so, you know, again, good timing. But this is a pretty strong team. We'd have to do quite a few transfers to get there, so we're going to make our own variation kind of this. But jumping back over to our team here, like I said, we're going to have Verstappen in here. We're going to have Antonelli. If you're looking at the constructors, Red Bull is 29.9 million, so we could make a couple moves and put them in there, and let's just kind of play around with that right now. We'd have to drop 2 of our higher priced assets. It might be possible with Sainz and Hadjar, let's see. If we put Red Bull in, we only have 11 million, which does mean we have enough money because our favorite Alpine guys are pretty cheap assets to own, but Colapinto is high on that list. So, you know, again, a good option, and so is Fernando Alonso. So technically we could own this team. We would have to take a negative 10 to get there. It might be worth it. It might not. We'll kind of watch and do what we always do, watch the FP1, 2, and 3. But if we're not having Franco and Alonso in there, and we just kind of jump back to our constructor being Mercedes, we do have some options. We do have some of those drivers predicted to make some money. We can't, unfortunately, put Tsunoda in because he would take up too much of our budget. But let's say we do put Alonso in there because we welcome him back into our team with open arms. It leaves us with 7.8. And, you know, we probably would want to do Behrman. So this is a pretty good looking squad, pretty confident in this actually. We're going to keep this in the back burner. We're going to watch our practice races and make that decision. It's not a sprint race weekend. If you still have points, obviously think about when you're going to activate them. Who knows? A wild card could happen any week. Depends on what happens in the qualifying. But good luck to everybody. If you have any questions, drop them down below, and best of luck to you all.
Thanks, Sean. Some good information there. As I say every week, keep what you want, get rid of what you don't. I think let's go to Mexico and have a good time.
I'm already drinking a cerveza right now.
We could do shots of tequila later.
Yeah, let's do it all.
Okay.